All right. I am so excited to welcome this week's Pretty Awkward Entrepreneur Awkward Time interview guest, Taylor Slango, to the podcast. Hello, Taylor.
So excited.
I know, me too. It was kind of funny how this interview happened. Taylor kept popping up. Well, Taylor and I feel like we've grown up in this industry together, like we've been in it since the beginning and we're still here, which is definitely something I want to talk about. But we connected, 4 years ago, maybe at this point.
I think it was 2018 because I was working for the marketing agency that you were.
That's right.
That was like the first time that we met.
Wow. Okay. And then we met in person in 2019.
Yep.
Yes.
Crazy.
Yes, that's right. And I just immediately, I think we took shots together.
I was just thinking about that the other day. I'm like, yeah, me and Meg hung out in person and we sat at the bar. Yeah.
We partied for a day there.
Yeah.
It was so much fun. And I just immediately was drawn to you. I just trusted you. I was like, oh, she feels like home. You just felt really comfortable. And just, we always respected each other so much, even though we never worked together per se, always were cheering each other on, which I loved.
Sure.
And you kept recently, in that past 6 months, you kept popping up on my TikTok feed. And I just loved everything I was seeing. I was like, oh, Taylor. And I would go and stalk what you were doing. And after a while, I was like, I need her on the podcast. There's so much that's changed in your business. One, you're still here, which I think is rare. Not everyone who started with us is still here.
I feel like I'm noticing that a lot more lately, in the last year or two, people who started with us are I don't know where they went.
It's wild. It's wild. Or they've done totally different things or quit entrepreneurship altogether.
Totally.
So that's one reason. But two, I just love how innovative you are. We're huge fans of that here, and how you're always trying new things. And I know you have a pretty big story of kind of a dark time you experienced and then how you gotten out of it. And just something a lot of people experience, but they feel alone because no one shares about that.
Yeah.
So I'm so grateful for you because you're going to share about that and be very open. And I really appreciate it. So
sure.
Welcome to the pod. Really pumped to have you here. For those who are not familiar with you, can you just do, your quick rundown, your Cliff Notes version of who Taylor is and why you're here today?
I've gone through so many evolutions that I don't have my elevator pitch quite perfected now to give you guys the range of what I do. Business and embodiment coach. I work with, entrepreneurs who really want to operate from an aligned place, spiritual entrepreneurs, intuitive entrepreneurs, heart center, multifaceted women. And, part of what I bring to the table is marketing, because that's what I grew up in. That's what I built my career around. And another big part of it is the energetics and the intuition and the funness and the lightness and the regulation and the subconscious clearing. So it's really the double whammy, and I'm in love with all of it.
I love it. That was beautiful. That's a great way to put it. And,
okay.
And I know you're not going to do your humble brag, but Taylor has an incredibly successful business. You've had many iterations of your business, but you've just really kept going. And something I love when you break down, when you guys go follow Taylor on Instagram, you really break down so transparently your sales, your process behind the scenes. And I love how you're doing that so in real time right now. I'm curious, is that something that you've always done, or is that kind of more of a recent thing that you've started to do?
For me, it's almost like a life hack. People are like, what do I talk about? What do I share? How do I let people in? How do I demonstrate my embodiment? I just talk about what I'm doing. And I'm not really concerned about presenting it in a box of it worked. So I had all these wins. Here's what I'm doing. It's I don't even know how it's going to turn out yet, but I really want to bring you along in the thought process so you can see the breakdown. So if it does work, you'll see the thought process. And if it doesn't, you'll see the thought process and how I go about perhaps doing it a different way.
I love that. And that takes a lot of, I guess, guts, balls. I don't know how you'd say it more eloquently than that, but it does, because you said, what if it doesn't work out? Then people are watching as it doesn't. And I just think we need more of that. I'm so inspired by you doing that. I'm actually doing this behind the scenes, close friends, curriculum revamp. And it's not really so much let's see how it turns out. I mean, it kind of will be, but it's hey, I'm literally redoing this in the moment. Want to see how I'm doing it.
And
some
that's
days
so
I know what
valuable.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
you know, when I was starting out and when you were starting out, there wasn't a lot of people doing that. They had already
No.
refined it, and it was presented to us always as like the framework, the 3 simple steps to X, Y, and Z. And it never
Yeah.
ended up working. And we didn't see, you know, how it got to that point or why it was proven. So I'm
Yeah.
just always fascinated to see like why someone decides the things that they're deciding.
Yeah. I love that. I think it's so smart. And it's just more honestly interesting to watch. Like I want to
Yeah.
watch your stuff because I'm like, ooh, what's she doing now? It's like, it's almost like a little reality show that you're taking people along.
Oh,
And
I love that because I love reality TV. When you're like, welcome to the pod, I'm like, are we on Love is Blind? We're in the
yes.
pod.
I love the line. I actually didn't get into reality TV till 2020 when the pandemic hit. And I was like, well, I want to escape mentally and emotionally.
Yeah.
I can't only reread Harry Potter for the 10th time. Like I need to do something else. And I started watching The Bachelor, and then it was a slippery slope to everything else.
I've
So,
never seen that, but I've been watching Jersey Shore every Thursday for literally like 12 years.
oh my gosh, I love it. That's
I
amazing.
can't believe they're still doing it, but
That's amazing. Fun fact, a couple people from the original cast were from Long Island, where I'm from. We were
yes.
we were very, very sad when that we're like, we're not all like this, I promise. But they're
I'm
so
like,
fun.
dang.
I
Yeah.
know. They're so fun. I love it. Okay, great. Well, we have so much we want to dive into. And so I'd love to just like really let's go for it right off the bat. You know, everyone listening, I told Taylor how these interviews go. It's like, you've had all this incredible success. You have this, you know, beautiful family and all this, and it looks amazing. And it is, but it wasn't picture perfect. It wasn't always pretty getting there. There were awkward moments. And so we love to talk about that here. So just take us back to one of the tougher moments in your business in the last few years, maybe something that made you question, is this what I want to do? Maybe giving up, anything that comes to mind for you.
I'm like all of 2021 and all of 2022.
Same.
Yeah, I'll just give you like a quick synopsis. In 2021, I got pregnant, and you know, from the outside, everything truly was looking flawless. We were having that baby, and we had purchased a house, we got new cars, we were traveling, we were saving money, cash flow was coming in huge months. Like from the outside, you would have been like, I freaking want what she has.
Yeah.
But that year I lost my grandmother. And so like, I was so blindsided by grief, and I had this kind of awakening of all the money and the materials and the things are right in front of me. And I would trade it all to have another conversation with her. Like nothing can supplement that. So I had figured out by that point, obviously, how to make money. Financial freedom was like embodied and unlocked and great. But I started this pursuit of emotional freedom of like, how do I regulate and take care of myself and meet myself with more compassion and grace when lifes. So 2022, actually the end of 2021, I had my son. That was going into 2022. And I completely had like, I don't know if it was an identity crisis. I think it was just an identity loss, because you go through, I mean, your whole cellular makeup and your hormones change. You as a woman literally go through a transformation after you give birth. And that was really blindsiding to me, because the business I had left on maternity leave was the same, but I was returning someone completely different. And all of a sudden, these signature programs I've spent years creating, I no longer wanted to sell. The curriculum I spent money investing in was no longer aligned and embodied. The way that I was marketing, I mean, so many things were just so misaligned that I had to, before I could even start rearranging things in my business, rearrange things within myself to say, who am I in this business and where am I going? And that was such a long process. I know you asked for like a micro moment, but really, like from the moment I gave birth, probably for the next like 7 to 8 months was just a lot of discovery and experimentation. And here's where it got really hard for me. I came back from maternity leave, and I was going to enroll my 6-figure mastermind, my other 6-figure mastermind, another 6-figure program. I mean, we had like really, really solid streams of revenue. When I came back to my business, I was like, I in no good way and no good integrity and faith could hold a group of high-level women right now. Because like, I can't even take a shower some days. Like my husband was like really caring for me and for my son at that time. But I was like, I don't have the capacity. I could sure sell it and we need the money, but it was an absolute hell no for me. So I ended up pausing quite a few programs. And with that came closing some huge streams of revenue. And I was still still was the primary provider. So my husband's home with my son while I'm, leading the business. And I just remember getting to a point where I was like, I wouldn't have to think about how to make money if I went to get a job. And I never, ever, ever, ever had that thought in my whole business.
Yeah.
And so that was scary to me a little bit, because I so believe like whatever our thoughts, like whatever our mind entertains is really important. So the fact that I started to entertain that was scary.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, it's wild how compatible our stories are, minus the baby. It's kind of wild because literally when you just said that, I was like, I just got full body chills.
Yeah.
Because I had the same exact sole provider, my husband he plays poker and all of that, but it was a long time he didn't. And it's more of a long-term game. It's something you have to build up your bankroll. We don't see the money a lot. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
And same exact thing, coming back and going, not coming back from obviously a pregnancy, but just what 2020 aftermath was, and going, I don't like anything I'm doing. I need to cut everything. I have to cut all these programs, get rid of all this income. It would be so much easier if someone just told me what to do. It's wild how much of that I'm like, oh, I'm not alone, Taylor. I wish we talked a year ago. I wish we talked so long ago.
Literally, because I was blindsided
wild
in it, because like the reason I share so openly about it is because I remember being in that dark place and thinking to myself, every time I show up on Instagram, there are thousands of women watching me and perhaps feeling jealous or envious or behind, and like really idolizing me and pedestaling me. And like, they have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. So, and I never really experienced people openly sharing in the process. It was always kind of like after the process, which isn't really helpful in the process. So I made it my mission while I'm here. My mantra was like, I'm going to take my pain and transmute it to purpose. I'm going to take my suffering and make it of service for somebody, because even though it's vulnerable and scary and it feels a little bit intimidating to admit where I'm at, I know it's going to help somebody.
I love that. Oh, that's exactly it. I think that's honestly what you just said, like transmute your pain to purpose. You said it much more eloquently than that, but it's really, that's what makes me so grateful for what we do, and even my husband and I talk about this all the time. Like now that we've been through so much personal growth and therapy and coaching, it's like, we can never just see a tough day as like, oh, it sucks, let's just go into bed and it's a tough day. We will do that occasionally, of course, but it's like, we always see the purpose. We always see the bright side, where we're like, we know this is happening for a reason. I'm like, man, sometimes I wish I didn't know this stuff, because it just like takes you over, but I'm so grateful for it. So grateful for it. It keeps you going. So, I'm curious, a couple of things that popped in my head. One is like, I'm not surprised, obviously, that all this happened after you had a baby, because so many of my close friends, my family who are moms, they're like, you become a different person. You have a totally different identity now, or a different part of your identity, a new identity added to what you already are. I'm curious, like, do you think most of that dark time you went through was from becoming a mom? Or do you think it was maybe a combination of that post 2020 as well, that come down a lot of people experienced, the industry? I'm curious what you think contributed to that.
Well, I didn't actually experience the come down. We did really, really fantastic in 2020. And then 2021, we did 200 times what we did in 2020.
Wow.
So
it's amazing.
Like in my mind, financially, from a business perspective, we were like up and up and up. And then I got pregnant and was like, I'm going to have the baby. I'm going to be intuitive. I'm going to be this like feminine portal, and it's going to go up and up and up. I think, so, it didn't. Disclaimer, spoiler alert, it did not. But for me, it was totally hormonal. Now, I've never been someone who has battled mental health. Like even before I knew what manifestation was, I had a really healthy mindset, and I've always juggled so much and been entrepreneurial. And so that's never been something that I was, what's the word I'm looking for? It wasn't something I prepared for. Like I took birthing classes and I learned about the baby and breastfeeding, and I did all of the things I needed to do to prepare for the baby coming, but I did nothing to prepare for what my life and hormones and the surge of hormones that just freaking plummet. And, for me, it was like, the permanence was really scary of like, I'm
Yeah.
never going to not have a baby again. I'm never going to not be responsible again. I'm never going to, like, it turned into a really horrible spiral of things I don't believe anymore now, but like, I'm never going to have freedom. I'm never going to have fun. My goals are dead and all of these things.
Mm.
And so I was in so many different forms of like therapy and rapid resolution therapy. And I was doing some havening therapy and really just getting poured into at the time. But I know that, um, I had to rebuild, and it's really hard to rebuild who you are and find that stillness and that clarity when you're not sleeping and your infant isn't pooping and you are, in the hospital for experimental procedures and you're not eating enough. I mean, there's so many things just for like basic survival. Like I said, like there were some weeks I didn't even shower. So no way I could be like, what's my purpose and how am I rerouting my vision in my business? And
Yeah.
the hormonal part of it was where I started to go down. And then I got stuck there for a while. I think even after I was coming out of it, because it was like, the story was, I shouldn't have gotten myself here. I should have known better. And that was hard to navigate too.
I'm sure there's so many moms, whether they started their business before this or after, or sorry, before they had kids or after they had kids, who are resonating with this right now, because it's like, you had this whole like, identity. You're a boss, you're a business owner, you're crushing it. Like your business grew 200 times. That's so incredible. And then to have those feelings of, oh my gosh, it's all going to disappear. It's almost like I had to feel, I'm putting words in your mouth, but I'm assuming like some guilt too. Like I feel bad for even thinking this when I have this beautiful baby.
Oh my God. The guilt was so overwhelming. And I had so much support, like my mom and my partner's mom, like they were, I didn't even know how much support I was going to need. So I was like pushing it away.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I can't even remember what the original question was, but I think
just the guilt like that you might have.
Oh yeah. The guilt. So the guilt was really overwhelming because I was like, I shouldn't feel this way. I should feel happy. I should feel blessed. I knew so many people struggling to conceive. I have friends who have lost babies and who have been on that journey. And like, here I am. And there were days in the beginning, I can say it now because I'm very far out of it, but I was like, I don't want this. I don't want to be a mom. I'm not ready. I wish I would have waited. How do we go back? Like, and I started to feel trapped in a way. And that was, I didn't like myself for how I was feeling. So again, it's like, if you don't like yourself, take motherhood away from it. If there's like, some inner conflict, it's going to be really hard for you to lead any sort of anything in your business.
Totally. Oh, and that's where it's like, exactly. You said basic human needs, it was hard for you to get. How are you going to also fill that? So I'm curious, thank you for sharing that. And I know so many moms are like, I felt that too. And I felt really guilty for thinking that, but it's just true. It's just true. It's not all rainbows and butterflies. Like there's so many hard points. So thank you for saying that. Cause I know that's like really hard to say and say out loud. But I know it just impacted so many people. I'm curious, during the time you took maternity leave, did you have like, I'm assuming systems in place, things in place to where you totally took off for however many months. So you felt like you could go through this dark period? Like, did it kind of set you up where you didn't have to worry since you were the sole provider? I'm just curious about that time.
For sure. We were really intentional with our planning process. I had my son in October, so I took all of October through all of January off and then kind of came back in the new year. I got back into Voxer, I think about like 6 or 8 weeks. That was by choice because I was like, I need some adult stimulation and I need it like yesterday to get back anchored into what I love, which was surprising to me because I was like, I'm never going to want to go back to work. And it was actually the opposite. It was like, I need to re-find, my purpose in life. But what we did was I had a mastermind and I basically had paused the program and then just tacked on however many months that I was off. And that was the only live program I was running that I had to do that for. Now I didn't just say, see you in 4 months. We actually still had our biweekly calls and I had rotating guest experts coming in and I had my team coming in. And so they got like a bunch of bonus content and then a few months afterwards for that. And then our reoccurring revenue, like it was built up 40, 50, 60K plus months, into the new year. So revenue was sustained and the time was sustained and I was totally off. And like I said, my son had a lot of complications that we also didn't see coming. And so we had like the time and resources to help him navigate that. But I don't know how women do it when they're on like a 6-week timer. Like I think that's a different conversation for a different day. But I think most maternity leaves like really set women up to fucking fall right on their face.
Yeah. Oh gosh. I especially like you said, if you have any complications, it's like,
yeah,
that just adds so much emotional stress too. There's just, oh my gosh, it's crazy.
I
It's
couldn't even drive for 6 weeks. So it's like crazy.
It's one, like, I've heard entrepreneurs say kind of both ways. Like, it's great that we get to set our own maternity, but it's also hard because like we have to make sure that the money's coming in, or that we're just going to take a hit for a while and rely on savings, or if you have systems up. And it's like, yes, but what you just said is so huge too. You can jump in and make money at any time when you need to, and you can take off. And that's something that, like, the moments where I've been, I want to quit my business, the whole, which happens like once a week, probably, like those moments, I always go back to that. I'm like, but I know in a pinch, we can always do that. And that's what's so cool about what we do. It's like, at the end of the day, we could make it happen.
Out of thin air, like
out of
thin air, which is incredible.
Exactly. Speaking of, this is a great transition. Something that I wanted, this is like a selfish episode because I love watching what you do. And I'm like, I just want to ask her a bunch of questions that I'm curious about, but I know my audience will be too. So
pick your brain episode. How fun.
Right? It's like, okay. So thank you for sharing all that. This is a little bit of a hard pivot, but maybe not. Is something that I've noticed maybe in your comeback from that dark time is in the last like 6 or so months that I've been really following what you've been doing. You are so quick to create stuff. You're like, it downloads. And one of my really good friends, who I just had an interview with, is like this too. And I'm like, how did they do this? It downloads, it comes out, it's out in a week and you're launching it. And I'm just curious, how do you do that? Like, it's so incredible to me. And I'm like, am I doing something wrong, or is that just not how I'm wired?
I literally love this question. I just said to Justin, my husband, 2 days ago, I was like, babe, I don't know how to teach people this, but I can do like 3 months worth of things in like 3 hours sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's like not an example.
Teach us your ways.
Like, this is what I want to give to the world.
Yeah.
But well, for one, I'll start with human design. I'm a generator. What do you know?
I'm a generator too.
Okay. So like, for me, that definitely plays a big part in it, because I feel like I can't rest if the energy is not burned. And so like that's one of the ways that I burn the energy. But something I discovered in my own personal process, which was so not me prior to baby, this was like a big thing that changed. Before, it was like 12-week launch process, 6-week launch process. You go through all the formalities and you check all the boxes, and I had great success with it and it worked. Yeah. And then I got back from maternity leave, and I don't know if it was like energy collapsing time or like what the shift was, but it was like, I'm like up at night sitting on these ideas. Like my soul is not letting me rest until it's like out into the world. And I know for me, when it's the most present and when it's the most like resonant in my body and in my mind, that's when it's going to come through the best. So if I have a really great idea and I'm like, great, I'm going to launch this in 6 weeks. For me, it's going to be so diluted by the time that we actually get to launching the thing. So I try to leverage and take advantage of like the most brilliant, brightest idea when it's the most radiant in my mind to bring it to life. And we have such a lean team. I really want people to know that. Like, we have 2 part-time people. We have like 2 base softwares. We do not do like big frilly things. I don't have 100 people and contractors like on hand to help me bring these to life. I still do a lot of things that people might say don't do in your business, but I really love doing in my business. So I don't want people to think in order to bring things to life that you need an army behind you. I think that's a big misconception. But something else too is, you don't need to know all the details to move. Like oftentimes when I have an idea, I'll go on my stories and I'll start to just conceptualize it. And that actually helps me get clear on the marketing message. So if I have something that I'm like, this is coming up, but I don't know how to say it or how to structure it, I just click live and put myself on the spot.
Oh, I love that.
I'm just like, let's see what comes up and let's see what comes through. Maybe some of it's good. Maybe we can use some of it, but like me sharing my ideas is part of what helps crystallize them as they come to life.
I love that. And you're taking people along the creation journey, which is just smart anyway, because you're kind of doing market research without being like, I'm doing market research, which is really cool. Sure. My question to that, because I'm sure some people were asking this, is that's awesome. How do you make sure you've warmed your audience up enough? How do you, like, what if you did go live and there wasn't a lot of interest or something, or you weren't getting feedback? I'm curious, like, how you adjust for that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different offer types. And so, for example, if I'm getting ready to like launch one-on-one or like a higher level mastermind, I know that I can move with that because it's going to be built primarily for my warm audience, which is something that I'm doing all the time, nurturing them and connecting with them. So if someone's coming in, we have like the foundation where they're not going to be cold for very long. So I think that's just, you know, a lot of the times my clients, they go into their pre-launch and they're like, okay, lead gen and visibility, the launch ends, and then like so does the visibility and the lead gen. So for us, that's something that's just sustained all the time. So my audience luckily is always relatively warm, but if not, my mind goes to how do I create an experience that is worth somebody's time to go to? And that's not, I'll preface this by saying I don't not have master classes. I'm not like anti-master classes or challenges, but I'm like, how can I create something that's going to create more oomph for someone versus like, come sign up to my webinar, like my 5-day challenge. How do I put fun into it? How do I make it something that they really don't want to miss? And then I just get them in that sort of launch strategy, if you will, to sell whatever it is.
You kind of like gamify it, as people say.
Yeah.
You know, make it fun. We love that over here. And it's so true. And I'm such a big proponent of like, I think challenges, webinars, et cetera, will always work, but you have to make them something people want to come to. Exactly what you said. You've got to add something fun, or even in the way you're marketing it. Like, and something I'm putting words in your mouth, but something I get from you is, well, you kind of just said it, so I'm not putting words in your mouth. It's created from your soul. You're like, this has to get out there. So it almost feels like you have such little attachment to what happens. You're like, one person could sign up, 50 people could sign up. I'm so pumped to create this. Is that kind of how you approach it?
Yeah, I actually have two things that I would love to say about that. The first thing is my word of the year for 2022 and my like year of rediscovery was just to play, to experiment. So that year I launched so many offers because I was like, I really need to get my hands dirty and figure out what I like and try things on for size. And like, it's not about creating the best new signature program. It's about like, do I like this? Do I want to do it again? And kind of going from there. And something that I love, if you guys know Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx, when she was growing up, her dad used to ask her like, oh, not what can we celebrate this week? But it was like, what did you fail at this week? And we're really going to like highlight that. So she was completely neutral around like nobody buying and that is such a superpower. So like I was okay with like failing. I use that with air quotes, everybody, but I was like failing forward. It was like closer to something else. And the second thing, it's so present for me because I just did a live stream about this over the weekend, but I think some people, when it comes to offer development, they go fishing. So it's like you're casting the knoll and you're hunting and gathering and you're like waiting for the bait to come. And is this it? Is this the next idea? Let me try it over here. Let me try it where the wind is. And it's like, I don't go fishing for my offers. The way that I think about offer creation is like, I'm at a beautiful restaurant and I'm getting served a 5-course meal. And sometimes it's like, it's a word, it's a sound, it's a song, it's a conversation, and the appetizer comes. And that's kind of like the first drop of an idea that I'll start to get from like my intuition. And then like when you're at a restaurant, you order your food, you're not like leaning forward, like, where's the meal? Where is it coming? Is it coming? Did you forget? Like you lean back, you enjoy your cocktail, you talk to the person across from you, you're present, you're waiting in expectancy, and you know the next course is going to come, and then you know the next course is going to come, and then you know they're going to offer you dessert. It's going to be the cherry on top. So when you said like, does the offer just come from within? Constantly. And I just sit and enjoy the restaurant, and I know like every detail will get revealed.
Oh, I just got such chills, and I visually pictured you at a restaurant. Like as you were saying,
yes, like such a vibe.
I love it. And it's so, and I think you just like hit the nail on the head of you trust yourself and you trust that it's going to come. And that's probably just a lot of experience too. And you seeing it come and you seeing like it always does. And that's, I think, one of the hardest parts. Honestly, it doesn't matter what level you're at. I was going to say beginner entrepreneurs, people who are very seasoned. I've definitely struggled with that in the last 2 years, especially. It was like, I've got to have the plan. I've got to know exactly what's happening. And sometimes that's the beauty, is not knowing. And I think it's something I love that you just said is like, you've built a business with such high monthly recurring revenue from that perspective. Whereas you hear so much, you've got to have your 12-month plan laid out. You've got to know exactly what you're launching every month. You've got to reverse engineer all that. And I think there's like freedom in structure, because then you get to kind of like change things up. But what you just said is like such beautiful permission for people to like, let it unfold, like do the work, like put it out there, ask yourself these questions, but as nudges come, follow them and be like, where's that going? You know, I love that analogy. It was so great. Thank you for that.
Yeah. One of my favorites. I think people get tripped up by permanence too. Like if I do it this way, it has to look like this. And I've been in offers sometimes where it's like, whoa. Actually, this is not the structure of the program at all, but like we have the space to pivot because people know it's a new offer. And like, that's just part of the territory of a pre-sale.
It's so, before you said something too, that I was like, oh gosh, I so resonate with that, is when you create something and you were like, I completely wanted to get rid of everything. But I spent so much money and time development. I'm like, it's just like staying at a 9-to-5 job that because you went to college for it, it's the same thing, you know, and we're in the middle of redoing a program that, again, so much time and money in, like so much time and money in, and I'm putting more time and money in redoing it. I'm like, I know this is the next iteration and I feel so clear about it. And I'm like, you know what? In a year, it might change again. And I'm going to come back to that. And that's okay. That's okay. You know? And it's just like you said, trusting and going with it. I love this. Question that I have for you, because again, I've been following and have all these questions that I want to ask you, is you started a new Instagram not too long ago, right?
Yeah. Not by choice.
Oh, it wasn't by choice.
No.
Okay. Tell us about that. I thought you intentionally started a new Instagram.
No, I mean, what was funny, I texted my coach when this happened. My Instagram in 2021 got hacked, and no, it was 2022. Last year, that in the mix. Been deleted. Yeah. I had 10,000 followers. It was an account that I had built organically over 4 years. And so literally within an instant, it was gone and nobody could help me. But prior to that, I was just telling my mentor, something about me just wants to start fresh. I just feel like everything else has died. Like maybe this needs to die too. And then God was like, you know, check, universe was like, I'll just take that from you. So I had to start rebuilding from the ground up. And that was also right when I was in the midst of like, who am I? And like, you know, I felt like I was in a season of my life that was almost like comical. Like people had to be watching from the outside and be like, oh no, not again. Like leave her alone.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I so relate to that. And I think it's too, once you've established yourself as a successful person, like you've had all this success, you feel, and I don't think this is true. I think it's something that we think, but we think eyes are on us, right? You think, oh, people are watching your every move, you know, all the time. We're also obsessed with ourselves. It's not true, right? It's kind of like, I used to be nervous. I still am. I don't go to the gym, but I used to like not like going to the gym because I was like, people are going to watch me and I don't know what I'm doing. No one's watching me ever.
Well, what's interesting to me when you say that is like, everyone's like, I want to go viral. I want all these people. I want to be visible. It's like, are you willing to be visible in your process, or are you just willing to be visible in your victory? Because there's a big difference there.
Ooh, that's such a great distinction. Willing to be visible in your victory, or willing to be visible in your process and not just your victory. That's so huge. Wow. Write that one down, everyone. That's a good one. It's so true. It's like kind of, you said the universe gave you that, it took away, you know, your account. I think also if someone says, I want to go viral, I want to get more leads, more visibility, and you get a bunch of hate comments on a post, that's just the beginning of what's going to happen when you get more visible. No matter how great you are, or how, you know, careful you are with your wording, if you're going to grow, you're going to have to be polarizing in some way, shape, or form. And I experienced that recently, and I was like, okay, I see you testing me a little bit. And it wasn't even that bad. And I was like, oh, that was tough. I have to get better at this, because if I want to grow the way I want to, it's going to be a lot worse than that.
Yeah. I had that happening to me in 2020. And I was like, just, it mortified me at first.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm just going to like delete all my content and go into a shell. And clearly I was not ready for the level of leadership I was seeking yet, you know?
Exactly. And I think you've gone through so much personal growth the last few years, is like, you've gotten to this place where now you can handle this. Whereas so many people, myself included, sometimes we get success before we're ready for it.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, you're going to deal with this now. You're going to go through this thing. And it's why a lot of people who have success burn out, or their relationships suffer, their health suffers, their mental health suffers. Like, it's very common. It's more common than not, because we're not like taking care of ourselves first and foremost. So
that pisses me off so much. Like, I feel like so much of my mission coming back from like old self and rebirth is, and this has always been true for me. And I say it, and it's probably going to be like mocking me, like, good for you, Taylor. But I've never experienced burnout in my business, like ever, because I've always had the business that prioritizes my mental well-being, my physical well-being, my emotional well-being, my spiritual well-being. Like, I've built something that gives me the flexibility and spaciousness where I am never, ever in jeopardy of pouring from an empty cup. And I think more of us as like the leaders, the CEOs, the decision makers, you have total control over that. So I say leverage the shit out of it.
Yeah, I love that. That's amazing. So true. I'm curious, with your current account, when you had to start over, how did you find that? How did that affect your sales, your engagement, your bottom line? Basically, did it affect it at all? Or did you have other things set up so you were like good to go?
Well, I was really grateful that I had built an email list, because we had an email list of like 20,000 people at the time.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. And I think I expected more people to translate over. Like, we definitely didn't recapture. If you go look at my profile now, I have like 1,200 followers. It's been a much slower growth, and the platform has changed, and
totally,
we run ads differently for a million different reasons. But I didn't notice anything from a revenue perspective until maybe like 6 to 8 months after, because I had like a group of like 700, 800 people, and I was launching to them, but I was like, I'm definitely feeling some audience fatigue now that wasn't there before. But what that prompted us to do was like double down on email marketing and like get more creative with like TikTok and, collaborations like this. And that's kind of been our strategy, which has helped grow a quality audience.
I love that. And that's what's cool is like, like you said, you're probably documenting your process. You're kind of that beginner again in growing an audience in which today is so different than a few years ago. So it's like,
it used to be so much easier.
I know, really. I was looking at old content to get like repurpose a lot for this launch, because I'm like, go back to what worked and make it new and make it fresh.
I lost all mine. We didn't have it documented anywhere.
Oh, no. You're like, I can't do that. Thanks for rubbing it in.
Yeah. Lesson learned.
And something I was looking at, I was like, wow, engagement was amazing. I was like, damn, I missed this. Like, and it was funny because I went, okay, but what did that lead to? I mean, it did lead to good things, but I think sometimes we put a little bit too much weight on that. And something I know I've noticed, which I'm sure you do too, is the silent followers who don't ever like anything, ever engage with anything. And then all of a sudden that's half of your enrollees. You're like, who are you? Where'd you come from?
Last year, I had like an astronomical amount of one-on-one clients who wanted to pay in full, which for me prior to that, it was like a nice once in a while thing.
Yeah.
And all of these women who were just ready to hand me over $25,000 cash today, never talked to, never DM'd, never liked anything. And I was like, okay, you said something earlier and I lost this thought, but it's back now. Like, faith is great. And I think it's important for us to have faith, but like, faith doesn't speak to your unconscious. Like, facts and evidence and proof is what's going to get like your underneath on board. And so anytime like I'm trying to think of like, why didn't it work? I go back and I find one piece of evidence. Like, did someone buy ever that we never talked to before? Like, was there ever a time that the money didn't come in? Was there ever a time I was actually going to get evicted? Was there ever actually a time? And if you're here listening to this, like, I'm going to assume that you survived and you made it. So you have some proof somewhere along the way that it's okay.
Oh, that's so true. We always like dramatize and mindset spiral to where we're like, oh my gosh, we're going to be on the side of the road with no home. And it's like, that's not going to happen. It's never happened.
Like, I literally thought that making $60K a month was like, oh my God, like I'm going to die. No, you're not.
Yeah. Isn't that wild? It just puts so much into, like you said, when you go through really tough times, like losing your grandma, losing anyone really close to you, it just shakes your world. And you're like, wow, okay, I know what matters and what doesn't. Doesn't mean you're not going to still go for big financial goals and all of that and push, but it's just from such a different, more soul driven way, which I've so seen that shift in you, just knowing you for how many years and following you regularly. I've seen it shift to like, oh, such a, like, you can tell that what you're putting out is channeled. It's like coming from
that.
Oh, I can see. I'm like, whoa, that's so you. It's so unique. And we love talking about that here on this podcast. Like, we want to be unique. We want to put our own spin on it. And you do that so beautifully. And I think you just give yourself the space to, it seems.
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest moneymaker we have is our individuality. And like, the more that, I mean, your whole business is like built on your relationship with self, like how you process things and like what you believe about yourself and your confidence and your self-conviction and like how you appreciate what you bring to the table and regulate through if someone disagrees. That is going to be the launch pad for every single other thing that you do. When I was in a dark place, my confidence was completely rocked. And so like, I wasn't leveraging my individuality because I didn't think it was enough. I didn't think it was good. So I think getting yourself to a place where you're like, my shit is so awesome, I literally don't care who signs up, is the best place you can be in to sell.
I love that. And you're, like you said, you're not attached to the numbers. You're truly creating from this like place of, I can't not put this out there on the earth. This is, that's what I'm meant to do. I love that.
Well, you know, I want to say this too. I was in a place where like I needed the money. Like in 2022, things we started to dip into savings and just like things unraveled the way they did. And I remember consciously thinking every single day, if I'm going to get out of this, the last thing that I need to do is like obsess and focus on the money. But also like you have to have some compassion, because if the money's not coming in and you can't pay your bills, like there's duality there. So I know there's some people out there that hear that they're like, but I need the money. Like you could need the money. And I totally get that and have compassion. And also like, has there ever been a time that it didn't come in? And also like, could it be this idea or an idea that comes in tomorrow? Can you go to bed tonight and like set the intention to wake up with something to sell? I mean, there's so many ways to do it, but not to be like so codependent with the sale coming in is really important.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that, because that's so true. And thank you for, again, being so honest about that. Like, that's something that, you know, especially when you've had these highs and all of a sudden you're like, how did I get here? Like, how did I get here?
That was the question I fucking asked myself on repeat. And it's like the least useful question you could ever
ask. Yeah, exactly. How's that going to serve you? You know, but it's so, I've definitely had that. I was like, what are we doing? Like, how, oh my gosh. And then I'm sure you've had this too, is I think I could go back to what I did. I know it worked and I can't, like I could, but I can't, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's, what are your values and like, how willing are you to stray, if at all? And I know for me and you and so many of us here, it's like, we're not really available to stray from them at all.
Yeah,
no matter
exactly.
how much money is on the table.
But
I remember being in Jamaica last year. So like, again, from the outside, oh, she's in Jamaica. She has a newborn. Like her mom's on vacation with her, taking care of the baby. I remember crying to my mom at the pool. Like, I don't know how I'm going to pay my team. Like that kind of like pressure and conflict of like, people are seeing one version of me online, but I know behind the scenes, like, there's a lot of stuff going on and I can't show up like this without talking about this, because that just feels like so fraudulent for me.
Yeah. And it's so, I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's hard. That's one of the biggest questions I get, which I'm like, it's funny. I'm glad you said that about the trust the nudge, because I do want to put a little program, very low ticket, about how to show up when life's happening. And it's,
I love that. I love that.
Been in my heart for so long. Yeah. And now you're saying, I'm like, Megan, you got to create it. Don't not create this. Because we've had huge life things happen in the last 2 years. We've had like 4 major life events happen, and I still showed up. And now I could have totally not. And I always tell people, disclaimer, to each his own. But one of the reasons I think I could is I kind of said, hey, elephant in the room, here's what's going on. And I didn't hide it, you know? I mean, I did during the separation, I didn't share, but I did after. And it felt just like so nice to create this relationship. And you've done this too with your community, that you can say that and they don't go, oh my gosh, she's not perfect, I'm going to run away. They go, oh my gosh, she's not perfect, I'm going to lean in, actually. Yeah.
You're like the biggest permission slip for them.
Exactly. So I love that. Again, this has just been such a beautiful, honest interview. And I'm so grateful for you to say that, because it's so easy to look at someone who's got all the things you want and go, it's so perfect, and say, well, actually there were some really tough times
Yeah.
And that's just the truth of entrepreneurship. And I always want to be so honest with people because it is not that like, I don't know, rosy colored glasses. Is that what I'm trying to
Rose colored
rose colored. Thank you. Rosy, whatever.
I don't know.
Rosy colored glasses. It's not that. And I think so many people quit so early because they expect it to be that. And then it's not. And they're like, so they think they did something wrong. And it's like, you didn't. You have to have a passion and a purpose beyond that. Otherwise you're not going to get through those tough moments. And you did, even though it was questionable for a while there, you got through it because you knew you have this bigger purpose and passion.
My coach, Andrea Crowder, if you guys don't know her, I want to cite her for this because something she always says is like, that got me to this will get me to that will get me to this, down is on the way to up. It's like, you know, you might be preparing for something that without this adversity or challenge or, you know, whatever is going on, conflict, you wouldn't be able to quite handle, or it wouldn't be embodied, or you wouldn't have the level of compassion, or like everything you're journeying through is just like preparing you for what's coming. And thank God for that, because like you said, we've been there where like we weren't prepared, and it's a crash and burn.
Yeah, totally. Oh, this has been amazing. We could talk for like 5 more
hours. I know. Good thing we get to again tomorrow.
I know, which is super exciting. So I'm going to make sure we link the podcast and or IG live that I'm actually going to be on Taylor's podcast tomorrow. So we'll link that in the show notes too. So you guys can cross promote, go listen to Taylor's podcast. But anything you want to, I always like to ask people, at the end, I try to remember, sometimes I forget. Was there an awkward moment that you're so grateful you went through, that you're like this? And when I say awkward, it could be a failure, that we would say quote unquote failure, that you're like, oh, that happened because I had to go down this other path instead.
Yeah, I think, I mean, the moments for me are like years, but like really going through that dark season, coincidentally enough, like the following year, I had so many clients that were like journeying through very similar things, or like, have you had this ever happen? I'm like, girl, I just had that exact same thing happen. So for me, and I'm not saying you have to struggle to, you know, to be able to support struggling people or anything like that. But all of a sudden I had a really ground level understanding of what other entrepreneurs are going to face. And that's going to like give me so much leverage. And my mindset was, it's so naive to think that I'm never going to struggle in business. And like the entrepreneurs who have been in it a long game, the experience, the fluctuation and the ebbs and flows and the down seasons is where there's like so much grit that like they can then leverage in the high season. So I'm so thankful that my whole world fell apart, and I'm so thankful that my whole business fell apart. And some, like, I'm cringing a little bit saying that because, you know, what we built was so beautiful, but I have so much clarity on where we're going long-term now. And I'm grateful.
I love that. Oh, that's so beautiful. Thank you for ending with that. That was perfect. And again, gives so much hope for everyone listening. So I just appreciate you. This was so incredible. Where can everyone go find you, stalk you, learn all about what you do?
Yes, come on Instagram. I'm still rebuilding my community. You can find me at Taylor Slango. My brand is actually called Aligned and Ambitious. So if you go to alignedandambitious.co, there's the website and our podcast and all the things we have coming on.
Amazing. We'll link all of that in the show notes for you. Yes. Everyone go follow Taylor and make sure, I know you love a good DM her what you loved about this episode. Like I know whenever I'm on podcasts, I love when people are like, oh my God, I loved your interview. It makes my day. Like, feels so good. So go do that for Taylor, because I know this is a great episode for you. Thank you so much for being here. This is really beautiful. And I just appreciate you so much.
Yes. Thank you for having me. You are a phenomenal question asker and host.
Thanks. I'll take it. I really was just very selfish. I was like, I want to know these things, so I'm going to ask them.
I love it.
Sometimes the best way to be, my friends, because most likely other people want to know too. So thank you so much, everyone. Go follow Taylor, and we'll see you in the next episode.